Michael Reineck. Joseph Schuler. Jordan Brady. And Bruce Delaney, or Delancey.
Mr. Chairman and committee members,
One
I'm
second,
Mike.
please.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, I'm Becky Carson-Eisenman, and my name was called, and I'm here, if I may.
Okay, why don't we do that, if you defer?
Excuse me.
That's quite all right.
Similarly, I'm Charity Strong, and my name was called as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, House State Affairs Committee members, I've sat here this last several evenings, and I have a question. Do you think you know someone like me? I'm a native Boisean my entire life. My father developed the land out there by Micron Eisenman Road. I am a taxpayer since I was 14 years old. I'm a business owner, a property management business for the last 10 years. I am a teacher in the Boise School District, having 10 years of teaching experience. I was blessed and privileged to be a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, raising our 3 beautiful children. I was the youth director and Christian education director for 10 years at the First Congregational United Church of Christ. I won the Woman of the Year in the United Church of Christ. I was the Wesleyan campus minister for the United Methodist Church. That's me, your citizen in Boise. And now I'm going to share with you something that feels like the absolute most private and personal. The part of me that absolutely violates my human rights that I need to say. And I am a lesbian. I come to you because the family values that I've raised my family with, the values that I'm teaching in the Boise School District, are the very Christian values that I've heard over and over, and I'm confused. I raised my children, and I teach in the public schools with the golden rule. We try to treat others as we want to be treated. I have children in my classroom representing a variety of faith base. I have Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, and pagan. I have to create an environment in my classroom, you've asked me to, that is the golden rule. In the New Testament, Jesus Christ teaches the number one thing, love. The greatest commandment of all is love. 310 times, I believe it's mentioned. I'm not a theologian, but 310 times love is what Jesus Christ calls us to do. And with that commandment is the very responsible task of communication and using our words to be helpful to one another and not harmful. I see
About
this
30
in,
seconds.
Forgiveness. Jesus talks about he who is without sin cast the first stone. So that encourages us to hold suspended judgment. And serving others. I can tell you, I myself and the members of the LGBT community live by these values. They are our values, and we want to be able to be respected in our homes and safe in our jobs. We want the liberty to work hard and share our gifts. We want to be judged by our qualifications and the quality of our work. We want opportunities to share with our community. And I share with you that I'm a lesbian, even though it's my human right. That's none of your business. But it is a matter of life and death for many people.
Would you please
so
wrap
today,
up?
I ask you to please vote yes for House Bill 2.
Are there questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn Blackhurst, is that who? Charity Strong, okay. Would you please come up?
I've been nervous about this for about 48 hours. So, again.
Join the club.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Charity Strong. I was born and raised in Idaho. I graduated from Boise State and I started my family here. I work full-time to support my wife and my 2 boys. They're 5 and 8. My oldest just turned 8 last night, and I'm the sole wage earner. Early on in my life, I learned how to use pronouns to protect myself and my family. I've decided I have to decide whether it is safe based on the perceptions and strongly held beliefs of others, and not just safe for me, but safe for my family. Will the pronoun that I use to describe myself and my family impact my ability to earn a living, receive service at a business, or maintain housing? That's on me for all 3 of those people. I face discrimination and hateful words from individuals in this community and even sometimes from my family. But I've been lucky too. I haven't suffered from violence or loss of employment like many others that I know. I live in Boise in a primarily supportive community that has adopted an ordinance to protect me and my family. Why are we leaving the well-being of others across the state up to chance? Why aren't we doing this in our entire state? I've worked mostly for organizations that included sexual orientation and/or gender identity in the Equal Employment Opportunity Statement, and that's due to a lesson I learned early on in my career. I graduated from Boise State, and I had my first child almost simultaneously. My spouse and I decided that I would work, and she would stay home with our child. I started my first post-college job. I loved it. I was glad to be serving my community. And about a month in, I was having a water cooler conversation with another colleague. And she asked me about my family. I said, well, I'm married. I have a 6-month-old son. And I left it at that. I'm not one to push my sexual orientation because that's not actually who I am. I'm somebody much deeper than that. She then went on to state, well, doesn't it bother you that we women have to support our deadbeat husbands? It's not something I was comfortable with. I didn't want to perpetuate that type of hateful rhetoric. And so I said, very quietly, my spouse is a woman. I dropped the conversation. I walked away. I didn't want to continue the conversation. The very next week, I got called into the boss's office. I had no idea why. They said, basically
About 30 seconds.
that I had made the coworker feel uncomfortable and that I had created a hostile work environment. Couldn't believe that a simple conversation that wasn't work-related, that didn't have anything to do with anything, could potentially cause me to lose my job and really the basis of support for my entire family. I don't lead with my sexuality. I lead with kindness and honesty. I lead with wit and loyalty, and these are the things that I learned growing up in Idaho. These are the things that we represent as the LGBT community. But what you also need to understand is that
Please wrap up. Your time
this
has
isn't
expired.
just for the LGBT community. This is for everybody that has sexuality or a gender identity, and that's all of us. Please support this House bill so that we can work together in order to make Idaho a better place. Thank you.
Are there questions? Thank you. At this point, we have about 10 or 12 that can't be here after lunch. We have about 15 minutes or so before we need to adjourn for the morning. We'd appreciate it if you would come to the podium rapidly and state your position on this. And please be as brief as possible, or else there'll be a number who won't be able to be heard today. So with that in mind, let's start out with Michael Reinke or Reineck?
Reineck.
Okay, my German pronunciation.
Well,
was right the
some
first
people
time.
say redneck, but I reject
Well, that
that.
happens. Joseph Schuler, Jordan Brady, Bruce Delaney, and then Deborah Ferguson. Please be extremely brief so we can accommodate all these.
Michael Reineck, Boise, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I've lived in Idaho for 28 years after serving 20 years in the Air Force, including 1 year in serving in Vietnam. My son, now 28 years old, was 6 months old when we moved here. One of my four daughters was born here. My son, Ryan, is familiar with this State House. He interviewed Governor Batt as a 6th grader at Lowell Elementary. What a state where a son or any child can come and talk to the governor of the state for a half hour in his office. He sang in the rotunda down here. He graduated from Boise High, he graduated from Columbia, he's one PhD away, dissertation. It's a big leap to get a PhD from Princeton. He loves Idaho and he returns several times a year. But now, as a gay man, he will not return to Idaho to live. Why? He would not be secure here in his job and housing. Without this bill, my son will not return to Idaho. This hurts me, affects my family deeply. And he's not the only one who won't live in Idaho. Large and small businesses, including such big organizations as the U.S. Air Force and the DOD, which promotes equality and gay rights and religious rights, been at the forefront. We want more weapon systems stationed here in Idaho. They look at that and say, why should we send our men and servicewomen who are out dying for this country to a state where they may be discriminated against? In any way, moving on quickly, there was one red herring during the hearing I'd like to address. I think the other ones have been addressed. And this was the issue regarding a father having sex with a daughter wanting to live as married in New Jersey. That was discussed quite a bit in the first or second day. Well, this is an example of a dysfunctional, sick family. This is nothing that has anything to do with discrimination in housing, employment, and accommodation based on gender or sexual
30
orientation.
seconds.
Well, in closing, we grapple with questions of identity and inequality and how we treat each other and people who are different than us. We as Idahoans are strongest when we see the inherent dignity in every human being. Our state is strongest when we uphold our equal equality. So that's what unifies us. Do we act with compassion and empathy? We are all beautiful flowers from the same garden, branches of the same majestic tree. My son's dreams and hopes are just as important and just as beautiful and just as worthy as mine and yours. Allow me my
Time
dream
has
that
expired, sir. Please wrap up.
allow me my dream that my son may return to his spiritual home. Please pass on the bill. And thank you very much.
Other questions? Thank you. Be aware that our attendance on the House floor is not optional today. We do have legislation, and it ties up the whole process, so would you please consider that. We do want to hear your position on this, but be as rapid as you possibly can. Joseph Schuler.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me here. My name is Joey Schuler, Joseph Schuler, and I'm representing myself, but I'm also a manager and administrator of 12 years with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Ada County, serving low-income youth. And I'll defer my time on that issue, but if you have any questions about the services we provide to youth and how this issue affects those kids, I'm happy to answer your questions. But I will say this, having two very loving, caring parents of any gender of sex is something that I believe middle and upper class America truly takes for granted. And so that is an important topic. I support House Bill 2 as a representative of the heterosexual community, but also allied with my friends and my family members from within the LGBT community. Among one of the greatest honors that I believe can be bestowed on a human being is the ability to represent and protect the rights of another human being. So I can think of no higher honor today, as well as any other day, than to see the task you are being asked to carry out here. You are being asked to understand a group of people that many do not, and others outright dismiss as insignificant or even worse. A group that others despise and take violent steps to hurt. I also see it as my responsibility to speak out against any such actions, and I believe my kids would want me to do the same. Because any kind of emotional harm to others is not something we will ever promote, and we should all take steps to protect that. And part of what makes us human is not what we already hold to be true, but our ability to seek understanding in others, and to grow and to learn and to be the best person we can be. That is the foundation of this great democracy. And if this idea of democracy is important to you as it is to me, you will give this group a fair hearing and, if possible, place yourself in their shoes. And I mean truly step outside of yourself in terms of the security and acceptance you feel, as you surely must given your position as an elected member of society. That is someone who others have said represent the very majority of our culture. Step into the shoes of a person whose society as whole is asking to step aside, to be a person in the minority. From within this frame of mind, which I'm asking you to consider the facts that have been presented to you in this hearing by so many wonderful people, look not at what your personal history has shown you, and please do not insert your religious views upon the religious views of the entire population you serve. We may not be the most diverse state, but we are nonetheless still very diverse. And I have a list of assumptions that I wanted us just to question, but I will defer those and speak more directly to several of the points that were brought up, particularly by Representative Crane.
You got 30 seconds.
One, I have this issue of the baker. I'm also a property owner and a manager. I truly believe that it really is the rule of fairness that should govern any of our interactions in this state, and that is the expectation I would have. I've spent 12 years hiring people, firing people, and I know that what is good for my business and for anything that I do with other people is something I cannot share with a select group of people. I need to be able to open that and let that rule of fairness govern. The issue of religion,
sir.
I was raised by two very conservative Christians, and they've always taught me to treat other people fairly. So I would ask you to keep that in mind as well. And I will, I guess, defer the rest of my comments, but thank you, and please pass House Bill 2. Questions?
Other questions? Thank you. Jordan Brady.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jordan Brady. I'm 24 years old. I'm a senior at Boise State University, and I'm here representing myself. Over the last few days, I know that you guys have heard hours of testimony, and I am sure that many of you are ready to continue your day. I know that you're all tired. I'm tired too. I'm tired of having to take time off of work and school to sit here. I'm tired of hearing members of my community, my family members, my neighbors, disparaged. I'm tired of being compared to a pedophile. I'm tired of watching other people give their testimonies to members of this committee with their hands over their head, with their eyes on their phones. I'm tired of reading the news and hearing that another gay or trans child killed themselves because their heart was too big to live in a world filled with so much hate. I understand that you have certain obligations that you feel that you need to do. This bill isn't just about housing or jobs. This bill is about human lives. Can't you understand that? Rhetoric shapes reality. The ways that we communicate inform how we perceive the world around us. And for thousands of Idahoans, currently that rhetoric tells them that they are not equal to others. This bill isn't just about certain accommodations. This bill is about equality, and it's about telling other people that they are equal to everybody else. And if you kill this bill, you're killing them too. I stand open for questioning.
Other questions? Thank you. Bruce Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will keep my remarks brief and leave my full testimony here. My name is Bruce Delaney. I'm owner of a small business here in Boise, and I'm here to support House Bill 2. Although I'm not a native of Idaho, my two children are. Over the past 2 days, the committee's heard testimony, 3 days, from those who suffer discrimination in housing and job opportunities because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. We've heard stories of bullying, harassment, and discrimination. We've also heard from owners of small businesses about their concerns about potential lawsuits if this House Bill 2 passes. I'm here to tell you that I do not share these concerns. As I said, I have a business here in Boise. Boise has had an ordinance for the past 2 years with language very similar to the language in House Bill 2. On Monday, we heard from Marianne Jordan from the Boise City Council about the effects of the ordinance Boise passed 2 years ago. Yesterday, we heard from Chief Masterson of the Boise Police about the positive effects of an ordinance like this one, the LGBT community feeling safer, it being better for business, and how no lawsuits or criminal charges have been filed in the 2 years because of this Boise ordinance. As a business owner in Boise, I see only the positive in having a safer and more welcoming environment for my customers and for my staff. I have family, friends, and customers from the LGBT community. If you own a business in Idaho, you do as well. I've heard a lot of mention of special treatment. No one is asking for special treatment with this bill. They're asking to be treated with the same dignity and respect that we all deserve. I urge you to send HB 2 to the floor with a pass recommendation, and I stand open for questions.
Are there questions? Thank you. Deborah Ferguson. Now let me get some others on deck here for a second. Catherine Brucey, I'll be next after you, then Laura Alvarez Schrag, Brian Peck, and Joe Anderson. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Deborah Ferguson. I'm an Idaho attorney with the law firm of Ferguson and Durham. I have practiced law now for over 29 years, and I'm lead counsel on the Lotta versus Otter case, the marriage equality case for Idaho. I want to keep my comments very short. I just have 3 to make. This non-discrimination provision has been passed in many states and many cities in Idaho, and all have been successfully implemented. 2, I agree with the statement submitted to the committee by Brian Kane, Deputy Attorney General, on the Attorney General's opinion of House Bill 2 and the conclusion of the Attorney General that the bill does not force any clergy to marry same-sex couples or would not impair any Idahoans' freedom of speech. 3rd and lastly, a new poll commissioned by Zion Bank concluded that 2/3 of Idahoans believe it should be against state law to discriminate against gays, lesbians, and transgender people in housing, employment, and business. This is the majority of Idahoans whom you represent. I urge you to pass House Bill 2 and update the Idaho Human Rights Act to reflect the views of a majority of Idahoans. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Are there questions? Thank you. Catherine?
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Kate
We
Bruce.
have your written testimony, by the way, and I
Oh.
hope you don't just try to read this all. Would you please summarize it?
Yes. Thank you for giving House Bill 2 a full hearing. I want to share my perspective with you because I am a native Idahoan. Suffice it to say, I have lived in every corner of this state. I am a Christian married mother of 3, a registered nurse, and a volunteer at my children's school. It is difficult to measure discrimination against a particular group of people when it is not a protected class because it isn't officially tracked. However, I looked into housing discrimination by calling Zoanne Olson, Executive Director of the Intermountain Fair Housing Council, which serves all of Idaho. Over the past year, the council received 3 complaints of discrimination based on sexual orientation and 1 complaint based on gender identity. That case is before HUD right now, and I do have details about it if you have questions about the discrimination that took place. But my point is, we have heard a lot of fear regarding frivolous lawsuits. Are gay and trans Idahoans more likely to file frivolous lawsuits than people with disabilities, religious minorities, or racial minorities? If the Human Rights Act has not caused our state to be overrun with frivolous lawsuits, we can be confident that that won't change if this amendment is passed. Olson says the number of complaints her office receives is low because tenants who have been discriminated against fear retaliation and know there is presently no law to protect them unless they live in federally funded housing. The number of complaints is low, and the council's goal is not to file as many lawsuits as possible. In fact, They work with housing providers to get them to address the discrimination. They educate housing providers so that they can avoid discriminatory practices,
You have about 30 seconds.
so that there are fewer cases. In fact, because of their efforts to educate, the number dropped to 4 last year from the 16 complaints she told me about a year ago. Chairman and members of the committee, I want all young people to know they have a future here with a job in the home if they work hard. With your fair and compassionate leadership, I hope that Idaho's Human Rights Act can finally be extended to my friends. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you. Laura Alvarez-Schrag, Brian Peck, and Joe Anderson.
Brian Peck will be with us this afternoon.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Laura Alvarez-Schrag, and I live in Nampa, Idaho. I am here just to share maybe a slightly different perspective from what we've been hearing in testimony the last 3 days. I want to talk about all of my work that I've done in corporate America for many years, a long career as a professional. I am a small business owner. I am a mother of 4. I am very active in my community, both in the city and the state level, as well as in my faith community and in my school. And my emphasis in human rights and making sure that everybody has human rights is the work that I do, have always done, and continue to do, is really looking at how do we bring our best selves to everything that we do, to our communities, to our jobs, to our church, and all that we have to offer. And we can't bring the best of ourselves to everything that we do if we live in fear, if we are worried, or if we are hiding, if we are holding back from sharing who we are. We can't give the best of ourselves. And I think we all have experiences of that where we've had to maybe hold back, maybe not bring our who we are completely. And we know that that makes a difference of what we can contribute. So I'm asking you to just keep that in mind of all the greatness that comes when we are able to be authentic, when we are able to contribute to our highest ability without fear, without hesitation. And having a Human Rights Act that protects us all, that represents us all, that unleashes us all to give our best is what this state and what our communities need and deserve. You all have a unique opportunity, a huge responsibility that I know is very, very difficult, and I commend you and I respect for you being in that position. But I ask you to have the courage to help us, to lead this state, lead this nation into greatness by having the
You have about
courage
30 seconds.
to voting and supporting to amending the Human Rights Act. Thank you very, very much for your service and for your time.
Other questions? Thank you. Brian Peck, please be brief.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Brian Peck and I'm here. As a licensed clinical social worker who works with people who suffer from anxiety, I'm here today informed by my professional experience to validate the fears of those who oppose HB 2, as well as to validate the fears of those who live under the very real threat of personal harm if HB 2 is not passed. Fear is a powerful emotion and often keeps us safe from real threats in our environment. Our brains also have the amazing ability to imagine threats, and we can experience real fear from things that only exist in our minds. The fear produced by an imagined mountain lion might keep a person from leaving his home. We would validate this person's experience of fear, and yet we would not think of closing down the businesses or evacuating the homes on his street based on his fear. In fact, the most compassionate response might be to expose the person to the very thing he fears. On the other hand, the fear produced by a real lion is one that can and should be addressed. We have heard several days of testimony outlining the real threats faced by LGBT individuals. As a society, we would be wise to acknowledge and validate everyone's fears. We would also be wise to reduce real suffering from actual threats whenever possible. I urge you to first consider the option that reduces harm before considering the option that accommodates the fear of the unknown. Will you vote no to accommodate the fear of what if, or will you vote yes to protect people from what is? Thank you for hearing my testimony. I stand for question.
Are there questions? Thank you for being here. Joe Anderson?